The Rhine River Valley by Shiny Visions. Copyright 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, we have entered the Rhine River Valley. It was a crisp and clear morning as the familiar voice of the cruise director broke through the ship's public address system. We hurriedly made our way to the top deck to find some empty seats for viewing this sight. The scenery surrounding us was spectacular. This area in Germany is one of the most beautiful and visited waterways in the world. For centuries, the Rhine has been one of the most important routes for merchants transporting their goods. These lands were highly sought after, as evidenced by the 40 castles and forts in the 36-mile stretch of this UNESCO World Heritage Area. It was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site as a recognition of this region's importance in geology, culture, and industry, as well as its contribution to Germany's rich history. What a magnificent way to pass the day in this bucolic and tranquil region of the Rhine River. We admired the rambling vineyard estates, the quiet towns that seemed to hold still the passing of time. We basked in the same sunlight that bathed and nourished the grapes that produced world-renowned wines. This region contains a perfect microclimate for growing the famous Riesling wine grapes, with its magical formula of weather, sunlight, and fertile soil. The Rhine River Valley is also known as a romantic destination. The works of famous writers and composers have been influenced by this fairy tale setting as a backdrop to their love stories and music. These days, this scenery draws not only cruise line tourists like us, but hikers and cyclers enjoy the region's many long-distance trails and bike routes as well. It is a fascinating section of the Rhine Valley to explore close up, and many choose to further immerse into the experience by staying at a centuries-old guest house or inn situated in one of the many quaint towns and villages positioned snugly along the riverbanks between the Rhine and the cliffs. We saw castles nestled in hillsides overlooking picturesque villages of stone and half-timbered homes that lined narrow cobblestone streets. Clock towers and cathedrals with sharp spires rose majestically above town centers. The once splendid bastions built strategically on high vantage points are today in various states of restoration and repair and disrepair. Some have been restored to their former glory, being repurposed into hotels, hostels, restaurants, and even private homes. Others are mostly rubble from centuries of neglect. Mostly constructed between the 12th century and the first half of the 14th century, these fortresses were built by the prince of the empire to protect their property from rivals. However, towards the end of the 13th century, they realized an even more important method of adding to their coffers, collecting tolls from passing ships transporting goods on the Rhine. Ruling princes built toll castles like this false Grafenstein castle, situated conveniently on an island on the Rhine. Heavy chains were strung across the waterway, halting any passing traffic. They would not only collect tolls, but the merchants had to unload their cargo, and the entire crew was required to stay in the town for a few days. After full payment was made, the chains would be lowered in the river, and the crew would then reload their ships and continue down the waterway until they came to the next toll castle. The tolls, in addition to the income of visitor lodging and cargo storage fees, made these towns very rich. Unfortunately for the vessels trying to transport goods down the waterway, however, these toll castle stops were costly and time-consuming. Wiesbaden is famous for its many thermal springs and its beautiful surroundings. The town's name literally translates to meadow baths. The magnificence and opulence of this thermal spa tourist town are evident everywhere. Biebrich Palace, seen here, was a Baroque residence built in Wiesbaden in 1702. Near the beginning of our cruise, we passed through the lush Wachau Valley on the Danube River, as you might recall. Also famed for their excellent wines, their vineyards, however, were planted differently from these in the Rhine Valley. In the Wachau Valley, as seen in this picture, the rows were planted horizontally along the steep, terraced, rocky hillsides. These horizontal rows help to hold the soil and rainwater and keep it from eroding the sharp hillsides. The drawback to this, however, is that the grapevines receive sun just on half of the plant, the part facing away from the hillside. In this Rhine River Valley, though, note that the rows are vertical, with plantings following the up and down contours of the hillsides. In some cases, the plantings are on amazingly steep inclines. This allows the grapevines to receive even more even distribution of sunlight throughout the day. It's the Lorelei Rock, a huge rock outcrop that rises vertically to an impressive 657 feet in height. The translation of Lorelei is murmur rock or murmuring rock. The combination of heavy current and a small waterfall created a murmuring sound. This, along with the special amplifying echo effect of the rock, gives it the name. This ominous sound is difficult to hear today because of the urbanization of the area. The most dangerous bend in the river lies just upstream from the Lorelei. Because of jagged reefs, many ships never made it safely past the Lorelei. This rocky cliff remains steeped in myth and legend, such as the sailor story of a beautifully captivating Fräulein whose long blonde hair almost covered her entire body. This mythical siren flirted and sang from this rock, thus so distracting the shipmen that they crashed onto the craggy reefs nearby. The bridge at Remagen was in 1945 a critical remaining bridge across the Rhine when it was captured during the Battle of Remagen by United States Army forces during the closing weeks of World War II. It finally collapsed in March of 1945, 10 days after it was captured, and was never rebuilt. These are Hitler's castles. During World War II, Allies tried hard not to destroy castles and cathedrals in attempts to preserve the culture of Germany. They were considered generally not strategic targets, and therefore Allies often avoided bombing them. Adolf Hitler, upon learning this, seized upon an idea of disguise. In order to protect his railways, he made the tunnel entries look like castles or cathedrals. These are still visible and well preserved today as you travel down the Rhine River. Thank you for watching my Rhine River Valley adventure. Our next stop on our journey on our Viking European cruise is Koblenz and the Marksburg Castle, so please stay tuned. This is Shiny Visions.